Bonjour, hi, welcome back to another episode of Matthew's Always Wrong. And today, big show today. A lot of news to go over. I can't even go over all the news that's gone by this week. But I want to go over some of the main stories, some important things I think that everyone should know. And some few other stories just to show you how bad the world is, how much society is collapsing. But it's okay because we are fighting the tide. We are here to fight the globalists. We are here for Canada One. And so my first story today I really want to get into, and I wanted to get into this last week, was the Israel-Iran situation. As you know, Israel's been essentially fighting proxy wars against the Iranian government, the Iranian military, for decades now. But recently, for the first time ever, Iran actually launched a real attack on Israel. Because before, it was just, they'd attack proxies, they'd attack the Houthis, and the, Hezbollah, and Hamas, right? So they're fighting a proxy war in Gaza. They were fighting proxy wars in Syria, in Yemen. But now what's interesting about this is the first time that Iran directly attacks Israel, and Israel directly attacks Iran. So, Israel's been fighting Hamas and Palestine for 6-7 months now, absolutely dominating it after October 7th, as you know. And Hamas has been essentially pushed back all the way down to one city, Rafah. And why everyone's getting this big fuss about don't attack Rafah is because a massive portion of the Gazan population, civilians, children, whatever, military, has all moved down to Rafah as Israel's taken most of the Gazan plateau. And this is essentially the last holdout for Hamas that Israel wants to go. But they're getting a lot of pushback from the international community about, possible humanitarian issues because there's such a large groupment of civilians in that area. And, there's a lot of ideas where if Israel goes into Rafah, it might lead to bigger involvement from the Iranian proxies. So Iran, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and all their proxies in the Middle East, and might lead to a larger attack, right? And even you got Joe Biden, who somehow is cogent enough to speak. He's not very cogent, but, he can talk a little bit. He's telling that he told Netanyahu that the U.S. wouldn't support an Israeli counteroffensive in Rafah. So here's what's going on. A few weeks ago, Israel bombs an Iranian consulate in Damascus, Syria. And why this is so newsworthy is because in war, one of the things you don't do is bomb consulates, because consulates are essentially protected territories, right? If you are allowed to bomb a country's consulate, which is technically that country's land, right? So if America had an embassy, a consulate in Canada, that place would be technically American land. It would be American property and property of the American government. So if Israel's allowed to bomb the Iranian consulate in Syria, what's to stop Iran from bombing an Israeli consulate in America? What's to stop Israel from bombing an Iranian consulate in Australia, right? So it's something you don't do in war. You cannot bomb, according to almost every rule of law, you're not supposed to bomb the consulates in other countries. Which is why I believe Israel is in the wrong. In this situation, Israel is in the wrong. People go, they're fighting terrorists, right? You didn't need to bomb the consulate. And by the way, when they bombed it, they killed like 7 or 8 top-level Iranian military. It was a total success, don't get me wrong. They got them. They got him, right? But, it wasn't, it's not something you do. It's not something you do in war. So Iran, naturally, they had to retaliate. And this missile attack that they sent to Israel a few days ago, or a week ago, I believe, was a retaliation. It was not, an attack. This is 100% a retaliation. Their consulate got bombed, so they'll bomb them back. But over anything, this is by far just a symbolic movement. I don't know what they were thinking, but here's what they did. Iran and its proxies, so Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, right, and Yemen, launched 331 missiles and drones towards Israel. The largest missile drone attack in the history of warfare is what they say. Here's the thing, right? Then they all get shot down. Essentially, every single one gets shot down. I believe 7 missiles or drones actually hit Israeli territory, killing no one. In fact, they actually injured a bunch of Palestinians. I believe the one kill they got was a Palestinian child. Right? So they shot these. They shot 110 ballistic missiles. 103 were shot down by UK, Jordan, and American air forces. So before they even got to Israel, most of them were shot down. Then they also shot 36 cruise missiles. All of them shot down as well. And everyone's going, well, it's because the Iron Dome is so good. The Iron Dome is very effective against, these slow-moving missiles, these slow-moving, short-range targets. These fast missiles that they shot, these drones, the Iron Dome cannot, in most cases, cannot protect it, right? So they needed the air forces to go out and bomb these things. Why do I say it's symbolic? Well, because they must have known that sending these very slow, over an extremely long period of time, took like 5 hours to get these things to hit Israel, right? They must have known that these things were gonna, probably get shot down. And I think it's a very symbolic movement going, hey, you can't do these things, right? And then everyone's going, they used the $2 billion is what it was estimated to cost. They go, well, they were using it because Joe Biden gave Iran $6 billion. That's not what happened. Iran did not get $6 billion from Joe Biden. The whole thing was because $6 billion was frozen under Trump embargoes and sanctions against Iran. That $6 billion was held in a frozen bank account in South Korea. That money then got unfrozen when Joe Biden came back, or came to power. That money then went to Qatar, and it's still frozen. Iran still doesn't have access to that $6 billion. So all these people going, it's $6 billion that Joe Biden gave them. Not true. And that's not to say Joe Biden's a great guy, okay? We'll just say that. It is likely due to increasing oil revenues that they're seeing as sanctions have gone down because of Iran keeps threatening. They keep going, we got nuclear devices, right? So everyone's going, whoa, we gotta make sure they're not escalating. Do they actually have nukes? Perhaps. Do they actually have nuclear stuff? Maybe a little bit. Is it a threat? Probably not. So, after Iran retaliates, this comes out 2 days ago, or yesterday in fact, Israel attacks a city in Iran. They attack Isfahan, I can't even say it, apparently targeting nuclear and military targets within Iran. A couple drone strikes, a couple, missiles, and now the entire Iranian airspace is fully blocked off because of these attacks. So, oh, by the way, okay, people go on Joe Biden, he's supporting them. Joe Biden 100% knew about this retaliatory attack Iran did against Israel last week. He goes, I'll pull up the actual quote, okay? Quote, Iran informed us in advance that would happen. Possible developments came up during a meeting with Blinken, and they, the U.S., conveyed to Iran that this reaction must be within certain limits. And now all of the pro-Israel people are going to go, he's anti-Semitic, he's going for the destruction of Israel. Right? There's a lot of sides to it, but the fact that you can't critique it, I think is an issue, okay? I don't think either side's in the right, but in this situation, 100% Israel's in the wrong because you don't bomb a consulate. That's not what you do. Right? So, that's the thing. Then they go, now they're attacking Iran. And will this lead to further escalation? Likely. It is likely going to cause further escalation. And why should we care? That's my thing, right? Why do we care about this pro-Palestine, pro-Israel, whatever, right? If you're living in Canada, you're living in America, you should be thinking about your own country's policies, correct? You shouldn't be worried about what's going on in Gaza, right? Yeah, people are dying. It's war. What do you think's going on? Nobody cares about Ukraine anymore. Zelensky especially, he's mad that this war is going on because he's going, guys, where's our money? But here's why why I believe America was so involved in this is because, and especially Saudi Arabia and Egypt, because where do you think all these Palestinian refugees are going to go? Where do you think all these people are going to go? They're going to go to Europe. They're going to try and get into Egypt, but they can't because they got a beautiful border wall. Shout out to Egypt's border wall, by the way. Beautiful. And then they'll end up emigrating to Canada, to America, because America's got the open border. So you're going to get all these Palestinian people coming, and that's going to be an issue because a lot of them could be possible sleeper terrorist cells, right? You don't know where they're coming from. They're not checking these people at the border. So it's not great. It's not a great situation. And by the way, more aid is going, more Ukraine aid, more Israel aid. It's a whole mess. But that was just a little bit of the Israel-Iran news I wanted to get over. I'm not, to be honest, I don't care. I don't care. I care about this country's policies. I care about what's going on in Canada. And what's going on in Canada, we're also being invaded. We're being invaded on the fiscal front. Justin Trudeau's Liberal government just released a new budget, new 2024-2025 budget. And my God, is it a piece of work. We'll say that. It's a 450-page document that they released a couple days ago. And my God, the spending of this government is truly outrageous. The economy is doing well, and we're spending like we're in the Great Depression. That's what's going on. So, I'll just give you a few headline numbers, okay? $53 billion in new spending over 5 years. $52 billion on the interest of Canadian debt alone. What does that mean? Well, you know the sales tax, the GST that you're paying? Every time you go to the store, you're paying that extra little tax, right? The goods and service tax. You go to your Walmart, you buy bread, you buy chips and whatever. You buy your Pepsi. You're paying a little bit extra on taxes, right? The federal government collects roughly $52 billion from that tax. The entirety of the sale tax is going to pay off the interest on the debt we own. Not paying down the debt. No. Paying the interest on the loans that we have. Justin Trudeau's government is terrible. You know, they used to say the budget will balance itself. Listen to me. If you ever hear a government going, the budget will balance itself, they're lying to you. They're lying to you because it never happens. It's an estimate based off of extremely rosy economic growth, right? They go, well, the economy will grow 5% and the budget will fix itself because tax revenue will go up. That's not true. It never happens. It never happens because their estimates are so high. Not only that, with that estimation, they'll just keep spending. So in 2015, The budget will balance itself. It's been 9 years, Trudeau. Where's the budget balanced? You know what we've gotten to? To be fair, he's made very good progress. I'll say that. He's made such good progress that he actually came under the expected deficit. Christian Freeland, the finance minister, a couple months ago goes, the deficit won't be over $40 billion. $40 billion of deficit. They're saying it won't go over. And shout out Justin Trudeau, my guy. He came in much lower. He came in at $39.8 billion in deficit. With, again, no plan to balance the budget. And in fact, their estimates going up to 2029 saying the deficit will still be $20 billion. Where's the plan, guy? What do you think? We can just keep printing money? Oh yeah, that's what they've been doing. That's what they can do. And that's what they'll continue doing unless something changes. So, what's in this $39 billion deficit? What's in this new budget, right? Besides the $52 billion in new spending. Well, there's a lot. You know, they're going, guys, we got to pay for some of this, right? So, guess what? New tax increases just dropped. Let's go. New capital gains tax on anything over $250,000 will go from 50% to 75%. No, that's not to say that 3/4 of the money you get from selling stocks over $250,000 will get 100% tax. No, that's not how it works. It means 75% now of your capital gains. So let's say you make $100,000, right? $75,000 is now taxed, is now be able to be taxed, right? And that will be taxed in addition to your regular income. So that $75,000 will probably be taxed 30-40%, and then that'll be your final. Before it was only 50%, so only $50,000 would have been able to have been taxed at that whatever rate, right? And now they're saying that'll bring in $19 billion over 5 years. Just as they destroy, corporate investment, big businesses trying to get in because nobody wants to create a business and sell their business. If 75% of that income is going to get taxed. Canada is becoming increasingly hostile to businesses, and that's why we're getting absolutely destroyed by American globalism. We're getting destroyed by large transnational American corporations that come in because no Canadian wants to innovate. No Canadian wants to create a business or sell because they know they're going to get taxed outrageously. So they'll go found their company in Delaware. They'll go create their company in Texas, whatever, and then come to Canada. Killing the local economy, taking out profits and resources from Canada and bringing it back to America. If you don't have Canadian businesses to reinvest profits and bring profits back to Canada, we're going to lose everything. Oh, but it creates jobs. New jobs will be created. Yeah, what do you think is going to happen when they keep on automating things? Happened with the car industry. It happened with the lumber industry, fishing, farming. All these large national corporations going, yeah, we'll create millions of jobs through billions of dollars of subsidies and grants. And now we got new robots. Now AI is going to come in. No more jobs, right? So that was one of the taxes. Secondly, and I think this is likely the most unpopular thing, and if anything would have led to the decline of Trudeau, besides his abysmal record right now and how unhappy Canadians are, I think the carbon tax single-handedly is likely the most pressing issue and the one that Canadians resonate with the most, right? So in 2019, the carbon tax was at $20 a ton of carbon. By this April 1st, and this is why Pierre Poilievre was getting all rallied up, right? The April 1st, that tax increased from $65 a ton to $80 a ton. What does that mean, right? And by the way, they're expecting it to go to $130 by 2030, $15 every year until 2030, $130 a ton. Now, what does this mean for you at the pumps? Not only does the carbon tax increase the price of literally everything, because everything runs on oil. All your transportation runs on oil. All your farms run on oil. Every company, it all runs on oil, right? And polluting thing, natural gas, anything that pollutes, methane, cow farmers are the issue against climate change, right? At the pumps, The previous $65 a ton carbon tax would have cost an extra 14 cents per liter at the pumps. With this new increase, it's up to 19 cents in addition. So you wonder why you're paying $1.90 per liter at the pumps, right? That could be a lot lower. Just saying that. And what's this carbon tax? It's all a fight against climate change, this climate catastrophe, correct? The reason why I think it's no longer as popular as it was in 2019, one, there's a lot less environmental impacts that the media and the government can blame on climate change. That's one. Two, I think people are slightly waking up. They're going, hey, they've been crying about this climate change stuff forever. Since 1970, they've been going, Florida will be underwater in 10 years. The ice caps will melt in 15 years. It'll all be gone, right? Has that happened? No, that has not happened. And I do want to get over on an episode talking about the entirety of the climate catastrophe, but, people are going, hey, the climate's kind of fine right now, Maybe climate change isn't actually impacting us. Maybe sea levels aren't rising a meter every year, right? So now they're going, hey, I can't afford groceries because of this carbon tax. I can't afford to fill up at the pumps. I can't afford to run my business because of all these things, right? So they're going, maybe climate change isn't the most pressing issue when you can't eat, Justin Trudeau. And this is why I think, and it's because it's such a blatant example of, what this government truly cares about. They care about the climate catastrophe, but at what cost? At the cost of every single Canadian. And now, what does this carbon tax money go, right? It goes right back to the provinces. So the provinces are now getting that money, and then they can then use it however they want to use it. And that's the only way that carbon tax would have, existed, because if the federal government would have just taken all of that money and they would have just, put it in a climate fund or given it to EV subsidies, right? That wouldn't have been as popular within the provinces, and I think there would have been a lot more backlash. So, some of that money does go back to the provinces. But then here's the main argument. They go, you'll get a carbon tax rebate. If you have a family, right, you'll get most of that money back. You shouldn't need a rebate for something that shouldn't exist. Think about it. Get rid of the carbon tax, no more rebate, right? This is just another ploy to control people more. It's this globalist agenda. It's this, World Economic Forum, the UN Climate Catastrophe Forum. Control people, impose more taxes on them, make them more reliant on the government. More government regulation is always good because the government can do no wrong. Let's keep going. More taxes. Taxes on cigarettes. They're coming for your cigarettes, people. Taxes are going up. New excise taxes on cigarettes increasing to $5.49 per carton. This will apparently raise $1.36 billion over 5 years. Can't have shit anymore in this country, right? People can't even smoke cigarettes anymore, which, yes, it's a good thing because we have a free healthcare system, and if everyone's getting cancer, who do you think is footing the bill? Correct? So yes, 100% I agree with this. I think that, people in America, smoke as much as you want, who cares, right? You're paying for your own healthcare. In Canada, because we have essentially a socialist system, where the taxpayers are footing the bills for, these cancer patients, these people with, chronic lung issues and lower life expectancies. I believe that we should maybe people shouldn't smoke as much, perchance, as they say. The CBC is also getting new funding, and Pierre Poilievre is going to hate this. So I'll say that. Pierre Poilievre, he's angry, because Pierre wants to defund the CBC, as it should be. $43 million in new funding to $1.3 billion, right? Now, can anybody in Canada name one program they've saw in the last month from the CBC that wasn't news related? You can't. The CBC has been running deficits. They've been Fiscally completely irresponsible. The executives are getting massive pay increases as they're laying off hundreds and hundreds of people, and yet, the government's got to foot the bill. How does the CBC cost $1.3 billion in direct government funding? How does that work? Why can't these guys run their own company? Why can't why can't they run a CBC News, CTV News, whatever, right? Why do we Canadians have to foot a bill for this thing that apparently is supposed to promote Canadian values when nobody looks at their shows, viewership's at record lows, and executives are just getting massive pay packages? Think about that. Anybody like us can make videos online, can make good content online with a camera and a phone, essentially, correct? So why do we need this $1.3 billion essentially like slush fund to fund this thing that nobody watches and that barely anyone likes or cares about because they don't actually do anything? It would be a completely different story if the CBC made good programs, maybe good news that actually promoted Canadian values. But that's not what's going on. Maybe they make one show, whatever, right? But private enterprise does it better. So either defund it completely, privatize it, or shut it down. Because those are the only issue. We could save $1.3 billion a year without having these executives who just got 30% raises as they fire hundreds of employees. Next up, new military spending. Let's go. $8 billion over 5 years, $73 billion over 20 years of new military spending. This will go to buy new helicopters, Arctic, developing Arctic bases, remodeling all the bases, new bombs, new submarines, new tanks. And this will bring us closer to the NATO 2%. So every NATO country is expected or supposed to give 2% of their income as defense spending so that, they can fund the NATO. So far, it's been America who's been footing the entire bill. They've been spending way over, and they've been essentially compensating for every European country being under, Canada being under. We just hit 1.7, this new $8 billion over 5 years will bring us to 1.43% of GDP as military spending, still below the 2% target, and what I believe is a waste. Stop, we don't need these globalist organizations. Get out of NATO, get out of the UN, get out of all of these things. Canada does not need to be footing the bill for these military spending. They don't need to be, we don't need to be having peacekeeping missions all over the world when people are dying of fentanyl in Alberta, in Vancouver, right? The opioid epidemic, people are homeless. People can't afford groceries. They can't afford energy. They can't afford anything in Canada. And yet we're spending billions and billions of dollars helping other countries develop, helping stop wars in other countries. It's not our job. It's not our place. Our military is not that big. And it doesn't need to be bigger. Yes, we do need more Arctic supremacy. I believe that because we don't want other countries. And I think the Arctic is the key to increasing Canadian futures, because as ice melts a little bit, as technology improves, more ships will be able to go through the Arctic, the north of Canada, instead of going through, the Panama Canal or going all the way around South America. Maybe Canada can become the new corridor. It could become the new Panama Canal. And by having military bases and having a bigger presence up north will entrench Canadian supremacy over that territory and allow us to have economic growth through that territory in the future. But $8 billion, it's not necessary. Canada's not at war. We don't need to do all of these things. And now housing. Oh my God, is this housing situation outrageous, people? And again, not like they're going to address the main cause, right? Why do you think housing prices have increased so much? Maybe because you're importing 500,000 people every year. Mass migration does not work in Canada. Immigration works at controlled levels. Of course it works. Historically, Canada, for the past 10 years, has brought in 250,000 immigrants a year. We're up to 500,000 now. 500,000 every year is essentially, a new Quebec City every single year. It's unsustainable. And compared to the housing levels that we're building, it doesn't work. This plan has absolutely no plan to slow down the immigration or even the student visas, the work visas, temporary residents, up to 600,000 a year. So total immigration for, let's say, a 3-year period is multi-million, correct? And we're building what? 200,000 houses a year? 200,000 units a year? It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And spending billions and billions of dollars on it to spur new construction is not going to work. So what's their plan? What's the housing plan? They want to create 3.9 million homes by 2031. This is roughly 2 million houses more than what's already on track to be built. 1.87 million houses already predicted to be built at current levels, correct? So, how are they going to build $2 million extra homes, correct? Right? Well, they've got a few things. One, with your taxpayer dollars, we're going to spend. So, let me go over a few things. $15 billion to top up existing apartment construction loans. So what does this mean? Companies who build apartments, big developers, right, will now be able to get easier loans, bigger loans from the federal government to create these properties. These more lenient loans to speed up development of these properties. Right? Then, $1 billion to top up existing homes program. So, $1 billion to, fix up a lot of these broken homes. $1.5 billion to Canadian Rental Protection Fund. What does that mean? What is Canadian Rental Protection? It just means that, people who, they're seeing their rents increase. Now the government will come in and protect them, right? $1.5 billion worth of protection. $6 billion of Canadian Housing Infrastructure Fund. So this will allow for new, roads, pipes, electricity to be built that municipalities can get from the federal government to expand and increase their housing. $400 million to top up existing housing accelerator funds. So this will, essentially pay developers, pay construction companies, pay people to, maybe speed up these housings a little bit. $470 million in contributions into the Rental Protection Fund. How is any of this different? So, $470 million Rental Protection Fund, $1.5 billion Canadian Rental Protection Fund. It's the same thing. They just keep spending. Spend. And $600 million for scaling up modular and prefab homes. So, this is what I'm most interested in. What does that mean, modular and prefab homes? Well, and they're taking a model from World War II. In World War II, afterwards, right, all these soldiers are coming back. There's a massive population boom. So the government took upon itself charge to build as many homes as fast as possible to, in the suburbs to allow for this urban sprawl because the population was booming so much. And what this meant was it creates these homogeneous little houses that were able to be quickly built, very quickly, and that people can move in, essentially, right? Here, what they're doing is they're kind of taking that measure, but those mini houses that people live in that are created out of containers that would go on container ships? That's the size of these houses, these little tiny houses that people are going to somehow get into. And somehow they'll cost, probably $300,000. They go, this is so much cheaper than owning your own home. The issue is not that, it's not that there's not enough homes. It's that there's too many people and homes aren't being built quickly enough, right? So they're just spending. Increase the monetary supply. More houses will magically appear. It is almost impossible that this target will even be reached, even with all this money being thrown into this. And then, here's what they want to do. They want to use public federal crown lands. So what is that? It's land owned by the federal government. And then they want to lease those out to allow for new construction. Here's the thing, Justin Trudeau. Only 4% of crown federal lands are not in the territories. So in the places where people are actually, they want to move to, Toronto, Vancouver is where nearly 50% of all immigrants go to. Only 4% of crown lands are in the provinces. 4%. And what's in those 4%? You've got military bases, you've got native reserves, you've got national parks. So what they're saying is, let's cut down national parks, right? Cut down, because apparently this government, right, it's so hypocritical. You say you care about the environment. You go, well, we need a carbon tax. There's too many carbon emissions, right? Which, by the way, carbon is good for plants. I don't know if anyone's gone through grade 9 biology, but do you understand how photosynthesis works? But they want to go, you can't afford groceries because we got to save the climate. Oh, but this national park? Cut it down. Let's build some apartments. Let's build a couple of high rises because the population's increasing too much. And they want to take back native reserves. They want to take down military bases. They want to take Canada Posts and federal offices, and they want to go, let's convert these into housing. Canada Post, which has been, absolutely outrageously fiscally irresponsible, and nobody wants, they're getting mogged, as they say, the young people. They're getting mogged by UPS. They're getting mogged by FedEx, Amazon. Nobody's using Canada Post, so they're going, you know what? Let's take these warehouses, take these offices. Let's build apartments on them. I do not believe this plan will create more housing. I think it's just a big publicity stunt. Spend more money. Just give people money. Give big businesses money. Maybe it'll fix it. Not actually trying to fix the underlying issue, which is mass migration, which is unsustainable at current levels. And by the way, when people tell you it's only skilled migrants coming, it's not. It's not. It's not all people with doctorate degrees. It's not all doctors and engineers. 40% of these people are just family reunification, which are a net negative to, taxes, to the welfare system, to Canada as a whole. Now, let's go on to immigration. What's in this budget for immigration? $1.3 billion over 3 years for new asylum seeker housing. $1.3 billion to let asylum seekers who are illegals, they're illegal migrants, illegal aliens as they're called in America, but here in Canada, we're nice. We care about the refugees. $1.3 billion to build over 3 years to build new housing for asylum seekers, not for Canadians. Canadians don't need housing. Canadians are oppressors. They don't need housing. But the migrants, they need it. They need it. $275 million over 5 years for refugee legal aid. Let me repeat that. $275 million over 5 years for legal aid for refugees, which are also illegals. Oh, but we have, we're being prosecuted in our country. There's war going on. They're lying. A lot of these people, they're committing fraud to come in this country. $750 million over 5 years to streamline asylum seeker claims. Why are we funding these things? Maybe you should think about it. Decrease the level of immigration to what has historically happened in Canada, which kind of resembles, maybe it's a little bit above housing, but it was somewhat manageable. This levels are unmanageable, and that was just legal immigration. Now you're bringing more illegals. And, well, first of all, illegals, that's not a nice word to say. Illegal alien hurts Hispanics, right? These people don't make sense. They're all hypocrites. They're all virtue signaling. They're going, we're better than you because we care about these migrants. More money is being spent on these, on this immigration things that are being spent on veterans and on the home. It's truly outrageous. And let's keep going. So, as you know, Justin Trudeau has a minority government and needed to pair up with the NDP, Jagmeet Singh of the NDP. The only reason the NDP partnered up with the Liberals is so that they can bring 2 new socialist, policies: universal dental care and universal pharmacare to Canada. So, how much is that going to cost the taxpayer? Well, dental care, let's go over it. $4.4 billion per year, which is double what they expected and what they told everyone was going to cost. And guess what? No dentists want to sign up because they're going to get paid less than if they were in the private sector. I think so far they've gotten 8 dentists, $4.4 billion. They've gotten 8 dentists, right? But people, they're spending too much. They're spending $2,000 a year per family to get dental. This will help them. Let me repeat that. $4.4 billion a year. That's more than the new military spending. That is more than essentially every piece of spending. That's on dental care alone. Let's go on pharmacare. Let me tell you about pharmacare. $11.2 billion first year in existence. Every year after that, which is expected, and will likely go up in the future when they actually see the real cost, $13.4 billion every year is expected. Now, what does that mean? Right now, they've started it in increments, so only a few drugs have been added so far. They're starting with diabetes and contraceptives. And I know what you're thinking, diabetes. You're not getting Ozempic. They're spending $11 billion and you can't even get Ozempic? Jagmeet Singh, get your shit together. Get your shit together. People want Ozempic. People want Wegovy. They need Zepbound, right? They don't need insulin. They need Ozempic. But the 2 most important drugs, apparently, in Canada is diabetes, which I understand. But contraceptives, as if the population crisis isn't bad enough, let's give free contraceptive drugs to everyone. Women need more ways to have protected sex, right? Less children, the better. One more time, I'll just say it. $11.2 billion. And you can't even get Ozempic. What is this? What is this country? But yeah, so that's some of the budget. There's a lot more, and there's a lot more reckless spending going on. But that's just a little bit. And it is truly outrageous, the amount of spending that this government is doing. And I completely condemn it. And this is why they're going to lose the election. This is not a prediction. We all know they're going to lose the election. Pierre Poilievre is going to absolutely destroy Justin Trudeau in the next election. And that's what's going to happen. Now, is Pierre Poilievre's housing plan going to work too? It is 100% an infringement on provincial rights. Yes. Is it going to work? Probably. It's going to work probably more than whatever this plan is, whatever this money is. But I think the person with the best housing strategy is probably Maxime Bernier from the People's Party of Canada. And people go, ugh, the PPC, they're just, they're a bunch of Nazis, right? They're all racist Nazis, right? That's not true. At least he is actually identifying the real issue. Both conservatives and liberals are not identifying the key issue. The key issue is immigration. It's not building housing. Maxime Bernier of the People's Party of Canada, they're planning on reducing immigration to, 100,000, 150,000 a year. Much more manageable levels than whatever we're doing here. So that's the Liberal budget. That was I can't get over. I'm still angry about this, and I think more people should be angry, especially young people. They mentioned the word fairness in this budget 80 times. They go, fairness for all generations. Yeah? What about your children? What about people now who are going to have to foot all this new taxpayer spending, this new deficit spending, who are going to have to pay for the interest on the debt? Who's going to have to pay for all these things? It's going to be us. It's going to be the Gen Zers. It's going to be the skibbity toileters. That's who's going to do it. So yeah, that's the budget. Truly disgusting. I got to say this, big government is not your friend. That's a fact. Big government, they do things worse than big business. We'll say that. Big business isn't good. Small local businesses are ideal. But the government, they're the worst. Just assume that. And they're always lying to you. So, I've got a few more things to go over, I think, that are kind of important. Fairview Point Claire Mall, which is just very close to where I live, just had a massive $3 million jewelry heist. One of the stores in the malls got robbed. Who were they robbed by? 10 illegals from Chile who are part of a Chilean crime gang. So this crime gang goes over every country. It's an international crime gang. And they rob these things. These 10 people, they don't speak English. They don't speak French. They're likely illegals, right? Who don't speak English or French, robbed $3 million worth of jewelry, and then they all got caught immediately. They got caught at their houses, and they got caught when they were fleeing at 1 a.m. You know? By the way, I gotta say, how did nobody catch that there were 10 people in the mall after hours? Because they somehow hid in the mall, and they were able to rob the store. Are the security guards so incompetent that they couldn't see that there were 10 people in the bathrooms? Or wherever they hid? That's all I'm saying. Another massive heist happened at Pearson Airport. $22.5 million worth of stuff was stolen. 400 kilos of gold was robbed, as well as $2.5 million in international cash. Apparently, it was a bunch of insiders at Air Canada who orchestrated this heist. There were also, the police also intercepted a bunch of guns, a massive gun shipment that was headed for Canada. It was also part of this. Now, Air Canada is going, guys, we had nothing to do with this. Probably not. They probably had nothing to do with it. But guess who are the people who were part of this? I just want to say, okay, most of them were from Brampton, Ontario. And as you know, whatever you know from Brampton, it's true. Brampton, Ontario, is one of the major destinations for Indians, right? The largest immigrant group is from India. 22% of the entire city of Brampton are non-citizens, okay? 22%, nearly a quarter of the population in Brampton, aren't Canadian citizens. They're all illegals. Or they're asylum seekers. They're refugees, right? 81% of Brampton are visible minorities. They're not even Canadians anymore, right? Now, that's not to say that all these people aren't Canada One. A lot of them probably are Canada One. And is why Indians are one of the richest demographics of immigrants who are coming over, right? 60% of these visible minorities are from India. Nearly every single person who was in this Pearson Airport Air Canada heist were from Brampton. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not saying anything. Not saying anything. Were the illegals? Perchance. I don't know. We don't know. It's still a closed investigation, but we don't know any of this. But that's just my 2 cents. That's all I wanted to say. And my final story for tonight is probably the craziest one. I have to say, out of all the stories that we spoke about today, this is probably the craziest one. In Mexico, it was found that NGOs, non-government organizations, essentially charities, were passing out flyers in Mexico telling illegal aliens that when they come over and cross to America, who's got the open border, not legally, when they cross over illegally, to vote for Joe Biden. This is what they're passing out to illegals in Mexico. Let me read you what it says, okay? This is a flyer that was found, and it's translated, okay? Matamoros Assistance Center. Welcome, migrants. The Resource Center is a 6-unit office complex that is home to HIAS, which provides legal assistance and assistance to obtain formal documents for the job search and integration into the city of Matamoros while waiting to access asylum process in the U.S. We support the legal team by all possible means, including approaching the camp to deliver documentation or gather people for consultations before the hearing. Listen to this. Reminder to vote for President Biden when you are in the United States. We need another 4 years of this mandate to remain open. Greetings, founder, whatever. Reminder to vote for President Biden when you are in the United States. They're telling illegal aliens to vote for Biden. That's why the border's open. It used to be a massive conspiracy. Illegals aren't coming here to vote. They're just trying to they're just trying to come here for, because everything else is so bad. Democrats are so nice. This is exactly what they're doing. This is what everyone's predicted. This is what everyone's been saying. These illegals are coming here, or coming there, I should say, and voting in elections for Democrats. That's why the Democrat states, they want to house as many migrants, because they can pack and pack it and pack it, so they always vote Democrat, right? That's why the border is open. That's why 10 million illegal aliens have entered the United States, because they know that who let them in? Joe Biden let them in. Let's vote Joe Biden, right? But illegals, they're not here to vote. They're just here to get a better life. They're here to vote. That's what they're doing. That's what these charities are doing. They're flying them over. They're getting them in Mexico. They're letting them in. They're telling them how to get in the United States so that they can vote Democrat. This is an attack on democracy. You want to talk about attack on democracy? It ain't Donald Trump. Say that much. It ain't Donald Trump. And that's what I wanted to finish for this episode today. Truly outrageous in terms of fiscal irresponsibility and all these things. It's, I have so much more news that I want to go over, but, we've got time constraints. We've got things to do. We are Canada One here, okay? We are here to protect Canadian values. If you are not Canada One, if you are a globalist, if you are an American multinational, if you have allegiance to another country, if you come here from India and you go, when people ask you, what are you? You go Indian. You are not Canada One. When you come to this country, you become Canadian, and your entire value system should be around promoting the Canadian ideal, promoting Canadian sovereignty against the globalist agenda, and and believing in the culture, the history, and the future of Canada. You are not Canada One if your allegiances are to Palestine or to Israel. I don't care. You are my enemy if you are not Canada One, and every Canadian should be Canadian One. And if they see someone who's not, then there's a problem. Nobody cares what race you are, what religion you are, what ethnicity, what sexual orientation you are. Nobody gives a shit. You know what we care about? You know what I care about? Do you put Canada at the number one? Is Canada your number one priority? Because if it isn't, I don't support you. And in fact, you are my enemy. That's all I have for today. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.